Welcome to Touchdown Town on BetsTV. I'm Gilles Gallant with FTN Bets and BetsTV. It's week 6, and we're here every Sunday morning helping you to make top quality decisions for your touchdown prop bets. I want to welcome my esteemed co-host, Brenden Deeg of National Football Post. And after watching his Eagles get smashed again on Thursday, there is a very high chance he is probably hungover for the show. Brenden, welcome.
Not hungover for this show. A little hungover on Friday after the Eagles game, I will say. But it's nice. I'm going to have a nice stress-free Eagles Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it. I put hard-earned money on the Jacksonville Jaguars, though, so a little disappointed on that to start the day. But I'm ready for this one. My picks are wacky. We're out there this week.
Oh yeah, and I'm known as somebody who's trying to go against the grain and not be very safe anymore with my picks and trying to take. And when you see this slate, you'll be shocked that I'm the one who's not going to be the one who's safe today. Wait till you see some of Brendan's picks today.
Buckle up with my picks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick recap and state of the line here. Essentially, through 5 weeks of the season, I'm basically 3-2. If you look at it from a weekly standpoint, I'm up about 4 units for the year, but 3 good weeks, 2 bad weeks. And I had a really bad week this past week. So again, like I said, I'm only down to about 4 units of profit. But the way I look at it is the reason why I'm encouraged is because this could have been a lot worse had I started chasing, because that's what I used to do when I first started betting touchdown scores, 4 or 5 years ago, is that I would go on these bad streaks, and then I just start chasing in game and whatever else, and it would just completely deplete my bankroll. So thankfully, I've learned not to do that, and I hope people understand that as well, that it is a long season, that it's weekly, and that we should be always looking at moving forward in profits and not just to see how we can get rich quick. And now, before we get into the picks, I just want to remind everybody to check out my show on BetsTV called Dog Day Afternoon. It's Tuesdays live at 2 p.m. Eastern. This past week, I had Jessica Gridiron with FanDuel. She is awesome. She's one of the best cappers out there, and really encourage you to check out the show to see what she thought for week 6. And now we're going to start our picks today. Brenden, I've got first dibs here, and first pick of the week for week 6 is going to be Allen Robinson, anytime touchdown. I got that at plus 210 at DraftKings. This one, I don't really feel like I need to be an expert to explain how good Allen Robinson is, because if you just look at the raw stats, he leads the team in all targets, snaps, red zone looks. He's a true wide receiver one. And the Packers have given up 12 passing touchdowns in 2021, 7 of those to wide receivers. And for odds comparison, Allen Robinson, just looking at every week that he's been priced for a touchdown score, he hasn't been below plus 200 all season, Brenden. And now I get him at home when the Packers defense is banged up. They're going to be missing both of their top corners, and both Jair Alexander and Kevin King. I know I was a little discouraged coming into today because of the fact that he didn't practice that much this week. He did practice on Friday, but you give me this kind of matchup without these corners, I love this pick at plus 210.
Yeah, you get a number 1 wide receiver at over plus 200 odds. Like you said, the Packers secondary is severely banged up right now. I actually think this game is going to be pretty close. I don't think this is going to be a classic Aaron Rodgers blows out the Bears type of football game. I think the Bears are going to be right in it to the end. Love this one. Anytime you get a number 1 wide receiver over that plus 200 value, it's good. And Allen Robinson's great. He's a top 15 receiver in the league. So
yeah, and I think obviously with Justin Fields, he's only thrown 1 passing touchdown so far in his brief time as an NFL starter. But he has just kind of looked a little bit better. And you see these rookie quarterbacks are just slowly starting to look a little bit better the more reps they get and the more game time they get. So I'm kind of banking on that being at home. So we'll see. So I guess that's my first pick of the week, Allen Robinson. Let's see pick number 1 from Brenden for week 6.
All right, so I'm going to start my slate off with a guy that I took in Monday Night Football week 4, I believe, is Jared Cook, plus 280 of the LA Chargers. Him and Justin Herbert already have a good connection going together. They seem to click right from the gate. His numbers aren't crazy, but it's solid tight end production, considering that they lost Hunter Henry to that big contract. He slotted in perfectly as a replacement. He is the big red zone target. He is a big man, one of the bigger tight ends in the NFL. He's that big kind of body tight end receiver or tight end that Herbert's going to be looking for. And the Baltimore Ravens have struggled so far against tight ends this season. They've already allowed 3 touchdowns. And if you take a look at just the past couple weeks, Noah Fant had 46 yards and a touchdown. 2 weeks ago when Mo Alley Cox last week had over 50 yards. So the Ravens aren't the greatest team to be slowing down tight ends at plus 280 at FanDuel. Sign me up.
So, Brenden, I wanted to ask you this because Donald Parham is a very popular pick, with the Chargers. I just want to know if somebody was to ask you, why wouldn't you take Donald Parham instead of Jared Cook in this matchup? Like, what would you say to that person?
It's more of just kind of personal preference with Jared Cook. I just like his bigger body type in the red zone. I actually think that Cook is the solidified number one Parham. You get the better odds, so people are kind of tailing towards that. You get in that plus 400 range. I don't think it's great value. I think if you can just get the number one tight end on the roster at plus 280, there's no need to kind of go overboard.
Sure. And I just wanted to ask that because, again, Parham is a very popular pick, and I'm sure that people would kind of wonder, like, oh, but I really like Parham today. Should I go with Cook or Parham? They're both bad against. I mean, you could technically bet both, but I wouldn't recommend that. They did both score in that week 4 matchup that you're referring to when they played the Raiders. I think it's a good, solid pick. I love Jared Cook. He hasn't worked out for me when I've tried to take him before, but he's worked out for you in those matchups.
Yeah, I'm one for one taking him this year. So let's keep that winning record alive.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to pick number 2 here. And speaking of familiar picks, people will recognize this pick as somebody that I took last week. And it was because of the odds and because of his position in the lineup. And it was Hunter Renfrow with the Raiders. And I got him at anytime touchdown at plus 275. And that's available at PointsBet. And for myself, the reason why I went back to Renfrow is it's probably the safest receiving pick for the Raiders that you could choose from. Because from a consistency standpoint, he has at least 8 targets in each of 4 of the 5 games and has at least 5 catches in those games and a red zone look every time. He's got 2 touchdowns as a result. The Broncos, they've only allowed 5 passing touchdowns this season, Brenden, and they're all to wide receivers. But in my opinion, I feel like it's I think they're overrated because of who they've beaten and who they've faced. They played the Jets, they played the Giants, they played the Jaguars, just teams that aren't very good passing offenses. So I think it's skewing their stats to make them look, much more higher of a quality. And then, of course, from a value standpoint for Hunter Renfrow, getting him at plus 275, I had to grab it because, again, this is the highest odds you've been able to get him at for the entire year. He's always been at plus 250 or less. Now at plus 275, I think it's a pretty good value to grab him there, especially with how involved he is in the offense and especially with how well the Broncos have defended tight ends this year.
I'm with you on the Broncos defense. It's kind of overrated right now. I think they're second in points allowed. I think that's very sway. Like you said, they played the Giants, they played the Jets, the Jaguars. Baltimore, like Lamar Jackson threw for over 300 yards against them. You're going to be able to get yours through the air. Derek Carr is arguably a better thrower of the football even right now than Lamar. So I think this offense is going to hum. And look, they got some motivation behind this interim head coach right now. I think they're going to play hard for him today.
I don't know. I'm one of those people who think that it's going to go completely off the rails for the Raiders.
So you're just hoping for one Renfrow touchdown, and then that's.
I took Broncos, man, this week, but I got them earlier at -3. I wasn't going to take them any more than a field goal, but I just think that the Broncos, I think they'll win this game just because I do think that their defense does some things that can contain guys like a Darren Waller or even some of their run game with Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Okay, so that's my second pick. Let's hear your second pick, Brenden.
All right, so I'm sticking with the tight end position. I am going with Hunter Henry, a guy that you took last week and hit on last week. I am taking your secret formula here. He is now emerged as the top tight end in New England. It looks like Johnny Smith has taken a backseat. Look, plus 250 odds is pretty solid for a guy that did hit last week as well. He had, in his last 2 games, Hunter Henry has 10 receptions for 2 touchdowns. Just in the last 2 weeks, he is hot. And plus 250 is great odds. That's at FanDuel. Dallas has surrendered 3 touchdowns, 2 tight ends this year. And just in general, I know I'm kind of putting into a bucket here. It's just tight ends, wide receivers combined. The Cowboys can't stop teams throwing the ball against them in the red zone. It is one of their bigger issues right now as a football team. They don't have many issues. They're a good team, but I do like this pick up plus 250. I think that's the guy that Mac Jones is going to be looking for in the red zone. And look, he's hot.
So everything you just said, how much did it pain you to have to say the Dallas Cowboys are a good team?
You know, I back in the day, about 3 to 5 years ago, I was kind of that biased Eagles fan that was just a dick and would never admit the Cowboys are good. I've transitioned to the adult stage of my life where I am willing to admit if the Cowboys, Giants, or the football team, watch football team is a good team. And look, I actually think Dallas is like the best team in the NFC right now, man. I think you. I'm right. I'm there, man. I'm like that. That into it. I think this could. I'm not saying this is your year, but it might be your year where you guys go farther than the first round of the playoffs.
All right. Well, before the show just becomes a 30-minute gush fest over the Cowboys, let's move on to my third pick here, and we're going with probably the safest pick of the week, but probably not even safe just because he hasn't really practiced at all this week. But I love him, Mike Williams, anytime touchdown at +160, and I got that at Bet365. Look, Mike Williams, one of 7 players in the NFL to score in 4 of 5 weeks this season. If you would just blindly bet Mike Williams every week, you'd be up 5.8 units in profit. And the Chargers offense, like, look, I know why you took Jared Cook, and I agree. Like, they're just so good. They're top 5 in passing touchdowns and yards. Williams has 6 touchdowns in 5 games. And it's the odds comparison, another tool that I use very heavily from FTN bets, where I track all the touchdown odds every week for every player. And one of the things that I loved about getting him at +160 is that if you look at every other book, he's around +105, +115. So if I'm going to be able to get an elite wide receiver like that at plus odds, where he is such a red zone threat now, I had to take it at +160. Am I crazy, Brenden, even with a guy who hadn't practiced all week?
You're not crazy at all. Is he leads wide receivers in touchdowns, correct?
He does.
Yeah, 6. So like get up at over +150. Like, you literally can't go wrong. I was shocked when I saw those odds. Yeah, this is. I know you said it's a safe pick. I'm on board with that. I don't think you should be going against that. This is as safe as it gets, and like over +150. You got to take this. That's
kind of how I viewed it, just based on usage, snaps, red zone targets, anything like that. Anybody who has those kind of stats is usually graded by sportsbooks in the 110 to 130 range, or you're like a Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, and you're getting like -125. So, and I've seen him at minus odds already this season. So to get him at +160, it's either the biggest trap line I've ever seen, and I'm a moth to the flame on it, or I got great value on it. So we're gonna find out when they play the Ravens here. So that is my third pick. Let's see Brendan's third pick for week 6.
All right, I absolutely love this pick. We are going with Nico Collins, wide receiver of the Houston Texans at +480 from FanDuel. He is back off the IR. He is active. He will slot in as the Texans' second wide receiver today. Look, they traded up in the 3rd round to draft this guy. The Houston organization loves him. This team, Houston, needs kind of just to get some excitement about some young talent. They don't have a lot on that roster. He is arguably one of like 4 or 5 players that Texans fans can get excited about. He's going to get targets. They're going to give him the ball. And again, he slots in at wide receiver number 2. And on top of that, the Colts have allowed the most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this season. And he's sitting at +480. This is like the best value I saw on the card all week. Me and you were talking about this week. I couldn't believe he was that high. He's a red zone threat too. He's a bigger body guy. I can see, even if the offense is slow and they get in the red zone, I could see them just throwing like a back goal line fade to him, try to get him involved at +480. Like, those odds are juicy. I love this pick.
Yeah, and I think the reason being why you get odds like this, there's a few reasons, but rookie hasn't played yet, playing with a passing offense that is just significantly below average. So that's why we're able to get odds like that at like +4. I've seen them as high as like +550 at some books too, like just ranging throughout the week. And I'm still not sold that Chris Moore is going to now become wide receiver 2 just because he had a great week against the Patriots. So that's kind of where I do agree with you. I think there is some value here on Nico Collins. That being said, just you're banking on the Texans offense. So
I know.
So and again, that's what the disclaimer that we have to put out there is he's priced at +450 for a reason. It's something that you got to be prepared with, the idea that it might only be just a one quick strike down the field, and that might have been your opportunity. But at +450 for a guy who's that kind of talent against a Colts defense that has been below average against the pass, especially against wide receivers, definitely worth taking a look. Okay, so those are 3 picks in the bag now for Brenden and I. I'm going to move on to pick number 4. Another familiar face, Brenden, and it's going to be a windy one in Cleveland. I'm taking AJ Green anytime touchdown at +325. I got that at PointsBet. Look, AJ Green, I played him last week. He scored twice already this season, and we went over this last week. Aside from week 5 against the Niners, if you just take that game away, AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins have nearly identical stats when it comes to snaps, red zone targets, overall targets. The only difference, obviously, is Hopkins has 4 touchdowns and Green only has 2. And I think what I'm really encouraged with AJ is that he does have 6 red zone targets in 2021. So it's not like he's being phased out or being used less than, say, like a Christian Kirk or a Rondale Moore. And the Browns, Mike Williams, just to use him as the example, they got torched repeatedly from the pass in week 5 against the Chargers. And I'm not using this point as a main reason why I'm betting AJ Green, but this is familiar territory for AJ. He's in 7 career games in Cleveland, 4 touchdowns. So it's not something that I would use as like a push me over the edge of why I would take AJ, but it is something that is obviously encouraging that he's used to playing there and that he has scored there before. So we'll see where it goes, but at plus 325 for wide receiver 2 in a top 5 passing offense, even though it's going to be super windy, I like it at plus 325. What do you think, Brenden?
Yeah, when I was doing my Browns Cardinals write-up this week, I was going to dive into AJ Green a little bit. He was like the 3rd least efficient wide receiver in football last year. He's bounced back tremendously. He's been awesome this year. It's been a great signing for Arizona. They've gotten the most out of him. I didn't think it was a good signing at the time, but it's worked out. He's basically kind of took over Christian Kirk's spot as a second wide receiver. You get him at those odds. I think it's great. And look, the Cardinals are humming, right? They're 5-0. I think they might have a little chip on their shoulder this week. They're underdogs. 5-0 underdogs. You don't really see that very often, right?
This week is tough for them because obviously Kingsbury's not going to be there.
And they have Chandler Jones out. They've got some injuries and some COVID issues.
It's going to be a very uphill battle for them to win. But I think I agree with you on that standpoint of that you're still getting a very like a top-end offense that can perform. I think it's just worrisome when you start to see like the head coach and the offensive player caller be gone. Like it's like, okay, now how much is Vance Joseph going to put on his plate for this, and how much is Kyler going to have to kind of go on his own? And I think it was very telling that you could see some of the wide receiver prop odds for this game, and seeing like even like DeAndre Hopkins was at plus 150 or more. So you could get some value with this game. So I figured to go with AJ Green. If somebody wanted to convince me that they wanted to bet on Nuke at plus 150, who am I to say not to bet on him at those odds? All right, now pick number 4, Brenden. What do you got for week 6?
Okay, this one is more of a feel pick. I'm not going to be able to throw a ton of stats your way to kind of back this one up. So this is more of a just trust me, bro, kind of pick. I'm going with Kendall Hinton plus 400 at FanDuel, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. No, he's not playing quarterback this week. He is transitioned to wide receiver after last year. He had to play quarterback in that COVID game. I think everyone remembers that. He is now the 3rd wide receiver on the Denver Broncos. The Broncos wide receiver room is severely banged up. He stepped up nicely. He had a touchdown last week. That was his first touchdown of the year. He's still at plus 400. And Pat Shurmur, his offense coordinator of the Broncos, was giving him a ton of love all week. Like multiple times in press conferences, he was saying this guy's going to be a bigger part of the offense. He's playing well. Denver has kind of slotted more to an 11 personnel team with 3 wide receivers and a tight end and a running back. He is now that 3rd wide receiver. When Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, if they do come back, or Jerry Judy's coming back soon, he will be definitely going down the depth chart. But until then, a plus 400. I like this one. I'm confident in this one. I don't have many stats to back it up. More of a feel pick, but trust me.
Did he score in week 5? Didn't he score week 5 against the Ravens? Yeah. So
last week, yeah.
I mean, I guess with this offense, you really just almost have to see like, what's Teddy Bridgewater going to do this week? Like, is he actually going to be able to move the ball down the field, or are we going to see kind of what happened against the Ravens the week prior? And again, I don't hate this pick. Like Kendall Hinton is just more. Are the Broncos going to be able to put up more than like 20 points? Are they going to score more than 2 touchdowns? And then do you have to worry about Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, who I know that you're a big fan of? How much are they going to rely on them as well? Even Noah Fant is getting a ton of looks in this offense. Tim Patrick probably hasn't really been seeing as many since week 2 or week 3. I think this is the week that Kendall Hinton could maybe get another one and then be relegated back to the bench. Yeah, exactly. I guess when Jerry Jeudy kind of makes his return to the lineup. But plus 400. Again, you're swinging for the fences. You hit one of those, it's pretty much your week. You know what I mean? So I have some sprinkles on them for sure. But yeah, I'm rooting for you, especially. I think Hinton is probably more likelier to score than Nico Collins, for example. But at the same time, man, both are great swings.
Yeah, 2 swings, yeah.
So now I'm going to go to my last pick for week 6. And I have hit on this guy before, and we're going to try him again. J.D. McKissic, anytime touchdown at plus 260, Brenden. Those odds are available at DraftKings. J.D. McKissic, very versatile. Like, he gets used both in the red zone in the passing game and the run game, especially when they're down. His snap counts, just looking at week-to-week progression, has increased every week, especially when people were very scared of whether or not he was going to be phased out of the offense completely after week 1. And the Chiefs are bottom 3 in rush yards allowed, 9 rushing touchdowns allowed, 6 of them to running backs. And Gibson, I'm not going to say that Antonio Gibson isn't going to play or that he's not going to play well, but I'm just a little bit worried about the fact that he hasn't been practicing as much over the last couple of weeks, has a shin injury. If Washington is down or down in the game against the Chiefs, which very well could happen. They could be down like 3 scores very easily by halftime. Or if Gibson was to take like an awkward fall, it'll likely be McKissic who's going to be playing most of the second half to play catch up. So, and another reference that I would use in this instance, if we're just using the scenario of the Chiefs blowing out the Washington football team, Eagles, Kenneth Gainwell, for example, in that exact type of matchup, he's the backup running back for them. He scored against the Chiefs when they were trying to play catch up. So I was just kind of looking at how teams are attacking them when they're down by like 20 points. There's only been one occurrence when that has happened this year because the Chiefs have been dog crap. But that was against the Eagles, and Kenneth Gainwell, again, a very appealing backup running back that you can get usually around plus 250, plus 300 to score a touchdown. He did score against them at those odds. So now looking at J.D. McKissic, who is going to be used probably in that kind of role again at plus 260, I love it.
Yeah, the Chiefs defense, I can throw out any analytics stat, yards per game, points per game. They are terrible. They're dead last in basically every statistic you can think of. And J.D. McKissic's been awesome this year. Probably my favorite play of the year so far was that dive in from the 5-yard line. That was still probably the coolest play of the year. Yeah, I know that this is a great pick. I love him. He's almost like a 1B running back. Him and Gibson kind of share touches right now. He's kind of emerged and kind of taken over all the Antonio Gibson love. So, yeah, I like this one a lot against his defense.
My favorite part about this game, especially when you're betting touchdown scores, is the Chiefs players. You can't find any value on them. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are always minus odds. It depends on how you feel about McCole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson. If you want to bet them, you'll probably get them in the plus 190 to plus 300 range. Or you can look at Mahomes in the plus 250 to plus 300 range. Again, just not offering a ton of value for potential scores. And then it's always the flip side. The team that they're facing always has incredible odds. And you could make a case for nearly every single Washington skill player to score because of how bad the Chiefs defense has been this season. So just looking at the statistics and just both how they've done against quarterbacks, how they've done against running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Basically, if you go look, they're bottom 5 in nearly every position for defense, of whether or not it be receptions, yards, or touchdowns allowed. So J.D. McKissic going to take a little bit more value. I still think Antonio Gibson will play and will play well and probably score a touchdown this week. I just think that if they're down by 20 points, he's going to get phased out and they're just going to use McKissic to try and play catch up. Again, that's a theory, but I've seen it play out already this season, and I've seen the way that Washington has used McKissic. So I think it's good value at plus 260. All right, enough of me rambling. Let's get your final pick of week 6, Brenden.
All right, let's get crazy again here. I am going back to the 2+ opposing team playing the Lions. We are going Joe Mixon, 2+ touchdowns at plus 600 at FanDuel. If you've been following the show, in week 4, I took David Montgomery 2+ touchdowns at plus 750. That hit about 4 minutes into the second quarter. Some of the earliest. That was a crazy day. I'm going back to kind of that trend of taking the team who's playing the Lions, taking that running back at 2+. Joe Mixon is healthy. He is going to start. This looks like a big week for him. He had a couple good games early, kind of slowed down a little bit. I think they're going to give him the ball early and often in this one. He is 6th in the NFL in the last 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks in red zone carries. Again, it's kind of died out a little bit, but I think he's going to kind of get back to that trend. And look, the Lions, I said this in week 4 when we were talking, they cannot hold running backs out the end zone. They've allowed 10 total touchdowns. 2 running backs. We're only 6 weeks in. Do the math. You can almost look at 2+, almost 2 a game. We talked about this after week 4. This is a trend I'm going to keep an eye on to see teams that are playing the Lions if the odds are good enough for 2+ touchdowns. last week against Minnesota. A good thing I didn't lay any money on it, and Dalvin Cook and Madison didn't have very good odds. But this week when I saw it was plus 600, I loved it. I signed me up. And look, I got three swings here with Nico Collins, Kendall Hinton, and Joe Mixon. If one of those and maybe lucky two of those hit, we got ourselves a good day.
Absolutely. And I think that's the main thing I'm trying to stress with touchdown scores to people who like to bet them and watch them, is that betting guys between the plus 100 and plus 200 range is just long term. If you're going to do it, is just kind of minus EV, just because they don't score as often as you think. Mm-hmm. And the guys, if you just look at the percentages of like the amount of people who score between the plus 100 and plus 200 range and the plus 200 to plus 400 range, it's not a big discrepancy. And your ceiling is capped on the amount of profits that you can hit. Yep. Because their odds are capped. Obviously, when you start looking at guys like Nico Collins and whatever else, you take some swings, but your basement is always the same. If you go 0-5, you go 0-5, but your ceiling of capped of where you could go is so much better. And I always recommend single bets for touchdown scorers, because once you start getting into parlays, it's the worst to try to like get like a 2 or 3. It's just tough. Yeah. If you're going to do it, just do like kind of beer money or whatever else. Don't try to put a full unit of your money on it unless you're prepared to lose it. So, so those are my 5 picks. Those are Brendan's picks for week 6. 10 total picks for 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern games. That's all for us today. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 Eastern on BetsTV. I'll have some touchdown scorer picks coming out later today for Sunday Night Football between the Seahawks and the Steelers. And if you're a subscriber to FTN Bets, you can already have access to those. But follow me on Twitter at GDog5000. Make sure to follow Brenden as well at Brenden Deeg NFP. Thank you for watching Touchdown Town for week 6. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV, and bon chance.